Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm Globby Gowan. This is Ed Spellman. Today I'm going to be installing a touchscreen Eonon Stereo head unit into my 2003 330 Ci that I just picked up. So in there right now is a aftermarket, like single DIN, 90s looking head unit that got to go. So I'm gonna get rid of that today. This will work if you have a factory radio in there. You're essentially removing that, you're removing the climate controls, and you're putting this double DIN touchscreen head unit in place of those items there. So I'll show you what you gotta do to take everything off to throw it in here. So I'll show you the head unit that I got. This is actually secondhand, essentially, from LCO BMW, my parts business that I got. It was already installed in the car, probably within the last 6 months or so, because it is brand new. So it was already wired, working, and I checked it all out before I actually put it in the car. But if you buy one new, it's essentially the same thing. You can hook up a backup camera to this, a wireless mic, all sorts of little things that come with it. For me, I'm just actually putting it in today and just hooking up the Bluetooth for my phone. I may or may not put a backup camera in there. I have like 8 cars and only one of them has a backup camera, so not really my thing. I don't really need it, but it is really good to have if you wanted to put that in there. But this is mainly just going to be the installation of the head unit. So let's get into it.
This week's video is brought to you by LCO BMW Parts. Visit our online store for E36, E46, and E90 parts, or follow us on Instagram at LCO BMW. All the links are in the description below.
All right, so here it is. Like that. These are actually really cool. I've seen a couple cars come through here that had them, and they really kind of bring the car up to date as far as like modern technology, and they work really nice and they fit pretty good. Other than that, that's pretty much what you're looking at. So this obviously is a double DIN where your factory radio is a single DIN. So you're going to essentially relocate your climate controls down to where one of the compartments is, which I'll show you here in a little bit. So these are compatible for 1999 to 2006. E46 cars. I believe it may be the same part number as an E39, but we don't really need to get into that. We're going to focus on E46 stuff today. So this was already pre-wired and had everything in the back. So I'm not sure exactly everything that you would need. And there's other ports in here like that you'll connect your backup camera and any other like device that comes with it that you can add on if you want. There's like a USB port and stuff like that too that you can hook in there. So essentially what we're going to be doing today is hooking this up to the factory wire harness in the car. So that'll work out pretty good. And then I believe we just have to hook up the factory antenna as well. So it'll be relatively easy installation. So now I'm going to go start taking all the old stuff out, show you what you need to do. I believe when you get this, it comes with a pry tool. So you will need some form of, you know, plastic pry tool just so you don't damage your trim. Other than that, basic tools, screwdrivers, Phillips head screwdriver and stuff like that. So that's all you really need. So we'll just start pulling this stuff out.
All right, now we're inside the car here. So this top piece of trim has to come out here, and this one over here, because this goes underneath there, so that has to get popped up as well. And this is the climate control here, and then there's this compartment here. This essentially, with one tug, will come right out there. It just pops in and out. So we can get that out of the way. And then now we're gonna lift this trim out, pry tool underneath. And just take your time with it. It comes out relatively easy. There. And we'll pop this off over here. That, and just to give you an idea what the back of that looks like, these orange tabs here, these little retainers here, they usually go inside here. This one's missing there. You can see one's right there. So if that stays on there, you could just pull that off with a pair of pliers and then put that right back into the dash. And here you go. There's another one that came off. So you just pull these off and then put them back where they came from. So when you put it back in, you don't have to worry about that not fitting correctly. Okay, so at this point, there are screws for the head unit here, which we're going to take those out. Like that. Put them in our cup holder so we don't lose them. And this is just this trim piece here. It's all warped and ugly. Get rid of that. Okay, and at this point we will pop out our climate control, and just a little bit on each side here. We'll pop this thing right out. And this just pops out too. So you'll have a couple connectors in the back there. This first one pulls straight out. This one has a little connector in here that you push the tab down. And you slide this black thing over like that, and that releases it. And this is a squeeze one. You squeeze this little guy here, pull him out, and the last one too. Squeeze that too. Pull that out, sit that out of the way. All right, and now there are more screws here. There's one here, and you got to take the ones off the vents too, because this frame piece that holds in the climate control and the radio has to be removed. So we'll take that out too. So we'll get these screws out of the way. Now this frame piece sits underneath the vent. So a lot of times you may have to take the vent out to get this frame piece out of the way here. So I'm going to try to just maneuver mine out of the way because there's a big crack in the top here like this, which is super common on these cars. So my concerns are that I'm going to completely break this vent if I try to remove it. So I'm going to essentially try to lift it up a little bit and pull this piece out. That one's missing. Here's one here. Alright, so now I'm going to just pull the head unit out here just to unplug this. So hopefully he's used the factory harness. If not, we're in for a little bit of a treat. Hard to tell. Just unplug it here. That out of the way. All right, good. So here is the factory harness back there. So if you're using a factory radio or you have a factory radio, it's essentially the same concept. You're going to pull that radio out and then take the connector off the back, the main connector. You just need a flathead screwdriver to try to get this out a little bit more. It's hard to tell, to move this piece over, which unlocks it, and then there'll be an antenna wire which you take off. So now you can actually lift up your vent and slide this under, since you're not going to use this again here, but you can slide it under there, but just be gentle with your vent. Sometimes getting these out are really hard, and you can kind of break them. There's, put your hand behind here, but you kind of pry them out. The tabs are like up the top here, and at the bottom they lock in there pretty good. So just be really gentle with your vent. Here's a better view of the connector. See, this is your antenna here, which is just a little tab here you push in to release it. And then this is the main harness for the stereo here. And you're essentially on the back of it like this, and you put a flathead and just gently, or your pry tool, gently work this slider up like that, and then it'll pop right out. While you have everything out, you want to take your climate control connectors here, and you're going to push these back and tuck them underneath here where this compartment is, since we're relocating them. Just pull them back underneath here like this. Like that. So I have my climate control plugged back in, and now I'm going to push it into this slot here. Now this is kind of a snug fit in here. So it fits pretty good. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up on the harnesses in the back just to make sure this is tight against here, because it's essentially pushing it forward like that. So I'm just going to pull back up here on the harnesses just so it's tight in here. Make sure the harness isn't in the way so it's not pushing against it. And then it fits a lot better. So I'm getting ready to install this now. So I am going to hook up my GPS antenna here. I'm actually going to take this, I'm going to hook it up on top of this vent in here. Essentially, it'll be on the other side of this dash here. A lot of people run it outside and they stick it up on the windshield. I'm just going to put it up there for now. It should do the trick. Also, if you are going to be adding your microphone, your backup camera, this is the time to run all of your wiring. So with this trim off, you can start running it behind the glove box. Like if you are going to run it, backup camera, you can run it down underneath the glove box there. You can run it behind that piece of trim panel there, that kick panel, and you can tuck it up underneath the sill there, run that all the way alongside. You could run it underneath this panel. Essentially, you could run it, this is fold down seats, run it behind the seat there, kick it through the trunk, and then tuck it up underneath the trunk trim into the actual trunk itself, and then you'd have to find a point from there. So that's just an idea. I've removed them from cars that way, so I've seen them run that way. Another thing is too, with running the microphone, a lot of people put them up here in the factory spot. So you would essentially want to run it up that A-pillar. Now, there's 3 torque screws that's behind the A-pillar under there. So you'd have to remove that piece. But every time you remove that piece, it's going to be damaged. When you start popping that off, it will crack and break. So you may have to reorder those just to give you a heads up. Or you can actually try to run it behind this panel here, which just pops up, and then tuck it up along inside the weather stripping there and try to run it inside the headliner and tuck it up in the back here. Remove your sunroof panel and tuck it through there. Just try to be creative with it as much as you can, because unfortunately with these cars, the more you take off, especially these pillars, they're just known to break. And if it's the original stuff in your car, it's probably going to crack. So just keep that in mind if you're going to take that off. Okay, now I'm going to hook everything up. So this is the factory harness antenna connection here. And this goes to the antenna connector right here on the end. That just clips in like that. And then the next thing is the GPS antenna here. And that goes underneath the factory antenna hookup. That just screws in. And then the next is the main harness here. Make sure we got it going in the right way. That. Okay, so now we got everything plugged in. So I am going to just give this a key on. Make sure it fires up. All right, so it works. Okay, so we're good there. So now I'm going to just start putting this back in. And same thing before, I'm going to slide these pieces here underneath the vent again. Just make sure the harness is kind of tucked back. There's like a little shelf back there. All these boxes are kind of sitting up, so you have plenty of room so this sits flush in here. All right. So pretty easy. Like that. So now those tabs are underneath the vent. Now we can put the vent screws back in and then the radio screws in here. So just run all 4 in first. Okay, now I have this kind of loosely in place. The screws are just kind of ran in. So you need a little bit of flex in here to get this rear trim piece in here, because if you tighten it down all the way, it's just too snug. So we're going to kind of just get this behind here and then finagle the screwdriver in there. So you start off with the side with the tab here in here first, and then slowly pull this back. Okay, so now it's in there like this. Can sneak in here, start snugging these down all the way. One little thing that I just picked up on as I was tightening this down is that these bottom ones here, they need to be a longer screw. So I didn't have any of the screws that this came with, so I was just using the original screws, which are essentially this long. So I ended up getting something a little bit longer like that to make up for the difference of how thick this bracket is, just so it goes all the way down to where it actually screws into in the car. The other screws just kept spinning and spinning. They were tight going through this plastic, but they just were not long enough to reach the inside bracket there. I also was using a smaller screwdriver like this to get in between this trim here to run those top vent screws all the way in. Okay, so just make sure you guide that pin in there and then it'll sit where you need it to be. Okay, so last piece of trim's going in here. So this piece is definitely hard, so definitely take your time with that to get that seated in there correctly. It kind of fought me tooth and nail just to get it positioned where it's supposed to. It kept getting caught on the little guide tabs that are on the actual radio there, but luckily I was able to pop that in, but take your time with that. So now we're gonna put this last piece in here. And that's pretty much it. Okay, so shows me that my door's open. And now I hooked my phone up to it when it was in the other car just to see if it worked. There's my phone. The other thing I ran into when I was hooking it up was there's a pin that's on here, and when you connect it, you have to put the pin that's on here into your phone. For some reason I overlooked that, but besides that, it picked the phone up right away, so it should essentially play my music. And it's got all different features in here. There's Google, Spotify, so all in all, pretty cool. It's got a ton of features in here. I don't know half of them, but essentially that's it. So it actually looks really good in here too. All right, so that's it. So the installation is relatively easy. The hardest part is that top trim piece, getting that to fit in there correctly. Other than that, it's really easy to do. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit more time if you want to run the reverse camera and the wireless mic and stuff like that. But other than that, it definitely pays off. It looks really good in the car, so I'm happy with the way it turned out. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Thanks for watching.